First came the Sky One, which became end of life after what felt like an hour and a half. Then came the Sky One Lite, where the buzzword light wasn't really that much accurate. And now Montech finally realized that counting is a thing. Meet the Montech Sky 2, my personal favorite mid-tower case of 2022. Much like the original Sky 1 and the Lite edition, the main goal of this case is airflow. And a lot of it. By default, Montech ships this thing with 3 pre-installed fans, 1 A-RGB in the back and 2 on this side panel. But before you believe that the folks over at Montech like to watch the world burn, the 2 fans on the side panel are actually reverse fans. Now, there are not many reverse fans available, most manufacturers just don't seem to care, but to make it short, instead of forcing people to rotate a fan making it look sometimes a bit boring, bad, or simply destroying its A-RGB implementation. Instead of doing all of that, what you can do is also create a special edition where just the fan blades themselves are reversed, making the fan blow air into the direction from which that side looks actually like the front side. And these 2 fans are exactly that, reverse fans, marked with an additional arrow going all around the center or by simply reading it on the back. So yeah, these 2 are blowing air into the case, which makes total sense. But because that still wasn't enough, Montech includes another reverse fan with this case. This one is meant to be installed on top of the power supply shroud. And because it's also a reverse fan, this one is pulling air into it through the PSU shroud and then pumping it into your GPU, greatly increasing its cooling capabilities. Now, there are many cases with fan spots on top of that PSU shroud, but most of the time the air provided to that is simply coming from, figure it out yourself. Some will be coming from the bottom part of the front panel or by just the leftover spot of the PSU itself, or like the intake in the bottom, and if that is not long enough, or any kinds of cracks and whatnot around the case. Inside the Sky 2, however, it is designed with this in mind. Therefore, the bottom part of the case is covered by a mesh filter, allowing the fan to breathe as much air as possible. So yeah, this is one of the very few cases where a PSU shroud fan is actually capable of working at full power. Something quite unfortunate is that as of writing this script, I have no idea if these fans will ever be released as an independent product. But they definitely should, because the bottom shroud can hold 2 of these, and it would just make so much sense to offer these as another product and then people go buy them and then slap 2 of them on there, and it just makes so much sense. Right now, the only thing I know is that these fans are called AX120 and RX120, but other than that, no clue. On a bright note, the top is hella cool as well. Instead of the usual magnetic dust filter, Montech went with a removable piece of metal with another mesh structure. Once removed by just unscrewing it in the back and then pulling it off, we can see an unusual amount of screw spots. What we can do here is either 3 120 fans or 2 140s. And the cool thing about this is that the 120s are actually offsettable by a few millimeters away from the motherboard. This makes it a lot easier to route cables at the top of the motherboard. Of course, having a completely removable top would be even better, but this is also already incredibly good. It's also the spot where you would install a radiator, 360 or 280, and everything below will fit just fine. Theoretically, we could also install a 120 in the back or on those side spots, but for obvious reasons that wouldn't make a lot of sense. And for not so obvious reasons, let's say you would do it behind the case on the side spots, there will never be enough space to fit the rad in without significantly bending the back panel. And as for the front side, how the frick do you plan to install any GPU once you push these fans another 27 or 38 millimeters further into the case? What does make a lot of sense, however, is the airflow concept inside of the Sky 2. Totaling at 8 120s or 5 120s and 2 140s is already quite the accomplishment considering the case is rather small, but it's actually the thought through airflow path that makes this a real beast. Best case scenario for something like this would be 2 intakes intakes on the side, another 2 intakes in the bottom, 1 or 2 intakes in the top, and then another exhaust in the back, and then the last spot as an exhaust. Of course, everything depending on how big your air cooler is. All of this would result in a very high positive pressure and a lot more air pass-through than most coolers can utilize anyway. Very, very good. Or just go full 360 red in the top, enjoy the fresh air coming from the side, which is being pulled straight into the red. Oh, and with all of my excitement about the cooling concept, I kinda jumped over everything else. So let's pull back and then do the usual stuff first. Out of the box, this mid-tower case is 420mm long, 215 wide and 490mm high, making it a relatively average mid-tower, not too big, not too small. The feet are kind of funny though. Instead of just having like 4 stamps, we have 4 feet that look kinda like platforms in the bottom. But hey, they are relatively high and slightly more than 2mm of space for the PSU to breathe, so everything is fine. The side and front of the case is covered in a 3mm thick tempered glass side panel. Removing this one is the usual process. Unscrew it in the back, and they are catching by the way, and then just pull. For the front glass, we first need to remove the top mesh filter and then just pull it up. Very simple, no screwdriver required, and it took me a bit longer to figure it out than I would like to admit. Inside we'll find the usual mid-case form factors: ATX, Micro ATX and Mini ATX. The usual suspects, including the handy stamped-in letters to know where the spacers need to go, though you just need to do that if you're planning to go MATX. The ATX spacers are already pre-installed. Oh, and fun fact, I think the plate is actually repurposed from another case. Not that this is an extremely bad thing, it's just funny because there is like a random EATX hole with stamped-in letter floating on the right side of the case. And I know for a fact that there is another one behind the Montech badge in the top. Doesn't make any sense, but I guess it's left over from like a previous usage or like from a previous tooling. For GPU and CPU cooler support, we are in for a real treat. Up to 168mm high coolers and up to 400mm long GPUs can be installed in this relatively small puppy considering 400mm long cards. So no matter what cooler, no matter what GPU, everything will fit in perfectly fine. For vertical GPU installation, there is no support natively, but Montech does include a separate available transformation kit for the 7 reattachable PCIe brackets, which will then transform it into like a 3-slot vertical mount. Something that actually for once makes sense given the 2 fans underneath it are just blowing air into the GPU, even if it would be relatively close to the glass side panel. Coming to the I/O and RGB, on the top side of the case you will find 2 USB 3.0 Type A's, a mic in, a mic out, and a USB Type C, which should be 3.1 Gen 2. Squished between one of the Type A's and the relatively clicky start button, we will find a little A-RGB button. Pressing this one toggles the little A-RGB controller hidden inside the back side of the case. This little thing is meant to be powered by SATA power and can control over hub up to 6 3-pin A-RGB connections and 6 4-pin PWM connections. And yes, you can let your motherboard take over control and do everything yourself via software. And while we're here, all of the front pin connectors are bundled inside a single header. That's the stuff. The PSU spot is located in the bottom compartment with removable dust filter from the back, and this one can be up to 230mm long, or you can do whatever you want to do by removing the hard drive cage in front of it. And as a little bonus, thanks to the mesh side of the case, there is no PSU glory hole by default, which is really great. The hard drive cage can be removed or slightly repositioned to the left or right by unscrewing the single screw. And this is also the place where we would find the bag of goodies in form of a bunch of screws for various devices and all kinds of zip ties and whatnot, including the longer like radiator screws meant to screw in the bottom fans here, because you can screw them from the top, which is also very handy. The cage itself can house up to 2 3.5-inch drives and a single 2.5-inch on top. And in case you forgot it, Montech made sure to remind you who made the case. But in case you want to have even more drives, there are two additional 2.5-inch spots behind the motherboard area. And right next to that we will find the next treat, cable management. In the back of the case we will find these rails with 3 Montech straps keeping everything together. And although I would regard this as a good move on Montech's side, by default that thing is pretty much filled. Though thanks to the 2 centimeters of space we can squish a bit more in here. Just don't expect to cramp in like everything. Next to these brackets we will also find the 2 cable hoses visible from the front. These are slightly angled as the 2 side fans are slightly lowered in and they make up that angle. But thanks to that we will get those nice looking cable bands. Plus I just love the fact that the rubbers come in the same color as the case. That's really my stuff. Anyway, in the bottom we will also get the new mandatory GPU cable hole, which is also covered in rubber, which isn't really always the case. Then we also got the usual holes at the top and bottom of the motherboard area, which by the way are relatively big for a mid-tower case. And before we end this, the mandatory category for cases made after 2020, RGB. The case itself doesn't have anything at all, but the fans do. All of them have a slightly rounded off square going all around them. If you like that, great. If you don't, get used to it because next year even implant crowns will get RGB. On that note, let's talk about design. As far as Montech's website is concerned, the Sky 2 comes in an all-black finish, which looks awesome, but there should also be a white edition according to the press material I got. It's just that for some reason the website doesn't list it anymore. And then there is the special Morocco Blue edition. Oh my god, does this look beautiful. I have no clue if this is the type of special edition that will remain in stock until the sun dries out, or if this is like a real special edition that, you know, they make 1,000, they sell and they are done, but damn, I really hope the B-rolls are able to showcase how beautiful this thing really is. That being said, the case looks definitely different from your usual mid-tower. Having the mesh in the bottom and just a piece of glass in the front just creates a different look. If that looks appealing to you will remain your decision, but I don't really think I need to give mine. I think my slightly higher pitched voice says it all. So let's get some facts bundled. The case feels relatively sturdy, high quality build stuff, nothing wiggles too much given the price point. The glass and metal could have been a little bit thicker, they could always have been, but given the price point, still acceptable. The airflow idea behind this is amazing, especially because Montech includes multiple reverse spinning fans by default, making sense of all of this. And I have never seen that happen. Take a Fantex P200A case. Great case, but turning the fans around just looks kinda weird. For the fans, according to my speed measuring thingy, they are spinning at 1500 RPM. And they are for sure not the best quality fans out there, that's no way possible, but in the very least they are not unbearably loud, plus given the amount you will let them spin at near noise floor most of the time anyway. Continuing the list, we have the top panel. I love the concept of this. Looks and feels a lot better than the usual metal filter. Accessible and high quality appearance, very good. Bottom intake, amazing. Bundled front control connector, nice looking badge inside of it in case you forgot to mate the case again. The space above the motherboard is great, the cable hose, perfect choice. I could now continue on for quite some time, but you get the point. I like it a lot, I liked working in it, and it is my favorite thing of this year. However, not everything that shines. I believe Montech has a bit of a quality control problem. When I got the case, one of the fans wasn't spinning. As it turned out, the according PWM connector, which was already pre-connected to the splitter or to the controller in the back, wasn't really finished as all of the pins were just still like dangling around. Of course, a simple push in fixed the issue, but hey, that kind of stuff can be really devastating if somebody doesn't know what he's doing, and just imagine having those loose cables dangling around for years. And then they might even, you know, fall out for real and start shorting stuff. It's not a lot of electricity going through them, that's for sure, but at some point stuff may start to burn, so this needs to become part of quality control ASAP. And then another thing, because I just finished this build, between me testing the case, doing the first 2 or 3 builds, and then doing the finished build which we can see now here, the controller just died, or the PWM portion of it died. No matter what I do with the controller now, it will just let the fan spin at max speed all the freaking time. I can use the same connector on the motherboard with fans and splitters as hell, you know, 6 fans, and use splitters, 5 fans. Well, on 2 separate headers, and it worked perfectly fine. As soon as the controller is involved, full speed, that thing doesn't work anymore. That's quality control issue. I don't know what happened there, but that cannot happen. And as the last thing that just made me a bit sad is the missed opportunity in the bottom. You can remove both mesh filters that mark the bottom part. The process is kind of self-harming and involves quite a lot of swearing, but in the end you can see how much air can actually travel into the case. And this is amazing, but why not put some fans in there? 92s are maybe kinda big, I get that, but like 80mm fans would have been so perfect for this. For sure not like next to the PSU and everything, but like here. It would have made so much sense. Just imagine stuffing the complete left and front side of the case with small Nokia fans. Sure, the one sitting next to the PSU wouldn't do a damn thing, but damn, that would look awesome and push so much air into the case. But hey, that's kind of a futuristic thing to expect, but the PWM thing should really be addressed, and I have no idea what went wrong with that controller, but that thing should also be on a quality control, on a better quality control. I'm still assuming that I'm in single incident, but if this is a standard problem with every case, we got a problem. To summarize the case, except for that cable thing and the controller, I really enjoyed working with it, and I think although the design is completely different, it looks freaking awesome. I think the case looks completely different from what Montech did with previous Sky series cases, but it's a very good step into the right direction. But what do you think about it? Do you prefer regular front intake back exhaust cases, or is this a good next step? It does look kind of like an 011 dynamic, but like with a box underneath it. I prefer this personally, but you know, what do you think? But okay, this should be it for today about the Montech Sky 2. At this point, a huge thank you to Montech for sending it over, but if you want to keep watching, have a look at our take on the older Sky One Lite. Maybe you like that one better. On a side note, we have channel memberships now, and if you're looking for a good way to sell your soul for an RG poop emoji, that's a pretty good way to go. Additionally, you can rest assured that the income will not only keep the channel afloat, but it will also serve to buy the color they painted the Sky 2 with, because I want every case to look as exceptionally cool as this one. Anyway, thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.